There's a specific kind of silence that falls over Foro Italico in Rome, when the crowd realizes they are witnessing something much larger than a tennis match. It is not the silence of boredom. It is a heavy, suffocating silence of anticipation. The air on the clay courts is thick, choked with red dust and history, and on May 10th, 2026, that history was being challenged in a way that made the entire sporting world stop and stare. The headline read, "Whole world seemed to be crazy," and for 2 hours inside the BNP Paribas Arena, the hyperbole felt completely justified. We were not just watching the third round of the Internazionale BNL d'Italia. We were watching a tectonic shift in the landscape of women's tennis. On one side of the net stood Elena Rybakina, the reigning Australian Open champion, the Wimbledon conqueror, the undisputed ice queen of the WTA Tour, operating at the absolute peak of her powers and hunting down the world #1 ranking with the cold, mechanical precision of an apex predator. On the other side stood Alexandra Eala, 20 years old, ranked 42nd in the world, a young woman carrying not just her own ambitions, but the desperate, starving hopes of the entire Philippine archipelago, a nation that has spent decades waiting for a singular global superstar to break to the impenetrable fortress of elite singles tennis. The final scoreline will tell you that Elena Rybakina defeated Alexandra Eala in straight sets 6-4, 6-3. If you only look at the box score, you might assume it was a routine day at the office for the world #2. You might assume the rookie showed up, got overpowered by the veteran, and went home. But if you watch the tape, if you look at the underlying metrics, and if you understand the psychological warfare that took place on that crushed brick, you know exactly why the tennis community erupted. Why did this specific match, a straight sets loss in the round of 32, feel like an earthquake? Why did it prompt veteran analysts to sit up straight and revise their entire outlook for the next decade of the WDA? Because in sports, there are losses that expose your limitations, and then there are losses that announce your arrival. This video is about the latter. We are going to deconstruct exactly what happened in Rome, why Alexandra Eala's performance terrified the established elite, and what this two-set battle reveals about the hidden, cutthroat economics of professional tennis. We will look at the biomechanics, the mental collapse that didn't happen, and the terrifying reality of what Elena Rybakina represents to the rest of the tour. By the end of this deep dive, you'll understand why May 10th, 2026, will be remembered not as the day Alexandra Eala lost, but as the day she proved the hype was fundamentally, undeniably real. To understand the magnitude of what happened on that Sunday afternoon, we have to rewind and look at the path that brought these two women to the specific collision course. Let's start with the Goliath of this narrative, Elena Rybakina. By the spring of 2026, Rybakina had evolved from a dangerous dark horse into an absolute monolith. She started the year by capturing her first Australian Open title, systematically dismantling Aryna Sabalenka and Jessica Pegula along the way. Her game is built on a foundation of pure, unadulterated power, but is a power devoid of visible effort. When Rybakina serves, it is a masterclass in kinetic chaining. She possesses one of the most lethal first serves in the history of the women's game, consistently finding the corners with a flat, driving force that leaves returners swinging at ghosts. But it is not just a serve, it is her temperament. She is famously stoic. She does not scream, she does not pump her fist, she rarely acknowledges a crowd. She plays tennis like she is solving a complex mathematical equation, stripping away all emotion to focus entirely on geometry and pace. Coming into the Italian Open, Rybakina was on a mission. She was within striking distance of the world #1 ranking. She knew that every point, every game, and every match was a stepping stone toward total dominance. However, clay is historically not her most comfortable surface. The red dirt slows down her flat ground strokes, forcing her into longer rallies and demanding a level of movement and sliding that neutralizes her overwhelming baseline aggression. Even still, a slightly compromised Rybakina is a nightmare for 99% of the tour. And then there's Alexandra Eala. The context surrounding this 20-year-old is critical to understanding the pressure she operates under. Eala is not just a tennis player. She is a national project. Developed at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca, she has had the eyes of 100 million people on her since she was winning junior Grand Slams. The transition from junior phenom to professional contender is a graveyard of tennis prodigies. For every Coco Gauff, there are a dozen highly touted teenagers who simply burn out, their bodies or their minds snapping under the grueling, lonely reality of the ITF and Challenger circuits. But Eala survived the crucible. Over the last 2 years, she painstakingly built her game, trading the raw, chaotic energy of her youth for tactical maturity. She broke into the top 50. She reached the semifinals in Miami in 2025 and the quarterfinals in Dubai early in 2026. Arriving in Rome, she was ranked a career-high 42. She had already proven she belonged on the main stage. Her first-round match against Magdalena Freck was a thriller, where Eala showed immense grit, coming back from a 2-game deficit in the third set to win. She followed that up with a stunning upset over Paris 2024 Olympic silver medalist Wang Xinyu. Eala plays a heavy, modern clay court game. Being a left-hander gives her an immediate geometric advantage, allowing her to hook her forehand cross-court into the right-hander's backhand, a tactic her mentor, Rafael Nadal, built an entire career upon. She possesses massive topspin, incredible footwork, and a relentless fighting spirit. But prior to May 10th, she had never faced anyone with the sheer, suffocating presence of Rybakina on a stage this large. She had never beaten a player ranked inside the top 3. The question was simple. What happens when the unstoppable force of Rybakina's power meets the immovable object of Eala's willpower? The match began with a fascinating tactical chess game. Rybakina, highly intelligent and fiercely prepared, knew exactly what she was facing. In her pre-match press conference, she explicitly mentioned bringing in a left-handed hitting partner just to prepare for Eala's unique spin. Rybakina understood that on clay, she could not simply hit Eala off the court. She needed to dictate the terms of engagement from the very first strike. From the opening game, Rybakina applied a suffocating pressure on Eala's serve. The strategy was clear. Do not let the young Filipino find her rhythm. Eala's serve is solid, but it does not possess the overwhelming velocity of the tour's absolute elite. Rybakina positioned herself aggressively inside the baseline on a return, looking to take the ball early and rob Eala of time. In the first few games, Eala held her ground. She engaged in long, punishing rallies, using her heavy forehand to push Rybakina back, testing the Kazakh's lateral movement on the dirt. But the margin for error against a Grand Slam champion is microscopic. In the third game of the first set, Eala blinked. A couple of slightly short balls, a slight dip in first serve percentage, and Rybakina pounced. The world number 2 secured the break of serve. And here is where the genius of Rybakina's game truly shines. Once she has a lead, she becomes an absolute fortress. She consolidated the break with a barrage of unreturnable serves, leaning on her ability to hit her spots under pressure. Rybakina won 33 service points in the match, operating with a ruthless efficiency. She took the first set 6-4. Now, let's analyze the psychology of this moment. You are 20 years old. You are playing the most intimidating woman on earth. You have played well. You have hit your spots. You have executed your game plan, and you still lost a set. This is the exact moment where young players usually fold. The mental toll of realizing that your best might not be good enough is devastating. The crowd expected a blowout in the second set. They expected Rybakina to step on the gas and Eala to quietly accept her fate. But this is exactly why the tennis world went crazy. Eala did not fold. In fact, she dug her heels deeper into the red clay. The second set began with a mirror image of the first. Rybakina, sensing blood in the water, secured an early break. At this point, the script was written. It was supposed to be a quick march to the finish line, but Alexandra Eala fundamentally refused to read the script. In a stunning reversal, Eala dramatically raised her level of aggression. Instead of retreating, she stepped up. She began taking Rybakina's heavy ground strokes on a rise, redirecting the pace and forcing the world number 2 into uncomfortable, stretched positions. And then Eala broke back. This was the micro moment that sent shockwaves through the stadium. Breaking Elena Rybakina's serve is one of the hardest tasks in professional sports. Doing it when you're down a set and a break, when the momentum is completely against you, requires a level of mental fortitude that cannot be taught. It requires a borderline irrational belief in your own abilities. When Eala secured that break, the atmosphere in the BNP Paribas arena shifted. The crowd, always appreciative of a gladiator, roared their approval. Rybakina, for a brief, fleeting second, looked visibly frustrated. But we must play the devil's advocate here to maintain our analytical rigor. Was Eala truly threatening to win the match, or was this merely a momentary lapse in concentration from Rybakina? Critics and data analysts will point out that Rybakina, despite being broken, was still largely in control of the underlying metrics. Rybakina's first serve points won percentage hovered around an elite 73%. She was generating break points, accumulating 7 opportunities throughout the match, while Eala was fighting tooth and nail just to survive her own service games. The professional counterargument is that Rybakina was simply managing the match. When you are a top-tier player, you do not need to play at 100% intensity for every single point. You play the score. When Eala pushed back, Rybakina simply assessed the situation, recalibrated, and shifted into a gear that Eala does not yet possess. After Eala broke back to level the second set, Rybakina immediately locked down her unforced errors, deepened her ground strokes, and broke Eala again to take a 4-2 lead. From there, the door was slammed shut. The drama evaporated, replaced by the cold, mechanical inevitability of a Rybakina victory. The Kazakh held her nerve, navigated the final games with clinical precision, and closed out the match 6-4, 6-3. So, if the outcome was never truly in doubt after the midway point of the second set, why did the media explode? Why were commentators praising Eala to the heavens despite a straight sets defeat? The answer lies in the concept of the ceiling. In professional scouting, whether it is tennis, basketball, or soccer, evaluators do not just look at the current result. They look at the underlying mechanics to determine a player's maximum potential. What the tennis world saw in Alexandra Eala during those 2 sets was a player who possesses a top 10 ceiling. They saw a player who was not physically overpowered by the most powerful woman on tour. They saw a left-handed spin that genuinely troubled a Grand Slam champion. Most importantly, they saw a temperament that thrives under the brightest lights, rather than shrinking away from them. Elena Rybakina essentially administered a stone-cold masterclass in top-tier tennis. She showed Eala exactly where the bar is set. She showed her that to be the best, you cannot just play well for bursts of 3 or 4 games. You have to sustain an excruciatingly high level of execution for every single point, for 2 straight hours. It was an education, baptized in red clay. Eala learned that top 5 players do not give you free points. They do not panic when they are broken. They absorb your best punch, smile politely, and hit you back twice as hard. But Eala's performance sent a message right back to the locker room. The message was, I am not afraid of the deep end, and I am learning how to swim. The hidden motives in this matchup also provide a fascinating layer of analysis. Let us examine Rybakina's perspective. Why was she so highly motivated against a 20-year-old? Because the WTA rankings mathematics were incredibly tight. Rybakina knew that Aryna Sabalenka had suffered a shock defeat earlier in the tournament. The door was wide open. If Rybakina won the title in Rome, she would close the gap on the number 1 ranking to a mere 470 points. Every match was a high-stakes financial and historical transaction. She could not afford to drop sets. She could not afford to spend unnecessary hours on the court, and she certainly could not afford to let a young upstart build confidence against her. Rybakina played Eala with the ruthlessness of a woman who has a much bigger prize in her crosshairs. Conversely, Eala's motives were entirely about validation. When you are ranked 42nd, your entire career is a fight for legitimacy. You are fighting for better court placements, fighting for seating at Grand Slams, fighting to prove to your sponsors and your federation that their investment is yielding dividends. A match against the world number 2 is a free swing. There is no pressure to win, only the opportunity to prove you belong. Eala played with the desperate hunger of a challenger trying to pull the sword from the stone. She didn't pull out this time, but she made it budge, and everyone watching saw it move. This brings us a grand trajectory. What does this match mean in the macro view of tennis history? Let us fast forward 5 years, to the year 2031. By looking at the data points established on May 10th, 2026, we can confidently project that this match was not a mere footnote, but an origin story. 5 years from now, the physical development of Alexandra Eala will be complete. The serve that Rybakina attacked will have gained 10 miles per hour in velocity. The tactical lapses that allowed Rybakina to break will have been ironed out through hundreds of hours of grueling tour experience. Because of matches like this, Eala is learning the exact blueprint of championship tennis. By 2031, it is entirely within the realm of statistical probability that Alexandra Eala is a fixture in the top 10, potentially carrying the mantle as a premier Asian player on the WTA Tour and deeply entrenched in the second week of Grand Slams. This match in Rome will be viewed as a moment the clay hardened, the moment the potential crystallized into tangible, dangerous reality. For Elena Rybakina, the legacy of this match will be that of the ultimate gatekeeper. In 5 years, Rybakina will be in her early 30s, likely possessing multiple Grand Slam titles, her name etched alongside the all-time greats of this era. She will be remembered as the standard-bearer of power tennis, the woman who forced an entire generation of younger players to elevate their game simply to survive on the same court as her. Her performance against Eala was a testament to her professionalism. She did not take the rookie lightly. She prepared, she executed, and she conquered, reinforcing the immense, terrifying gap between being very good and being the absolute best in the world. The final thought I want to leave you with is a meditation on the nature of losing. In our hyper-reactionary sports culture, we are conditioned to view a loss as a failure. A 0 in the win column is treated as a damning indictment of a player's worth. But tennis is a uniquely brutal sport. In a tournament of 128 players, 127 of them will end their week with a loss. Losing is a natural state of a tennis player. The true measure of greatness is not whether you lose, but how you lose, and who you are capable of pushing to the brink before you fall. Alexandra Eala lost to Elena Rybakina, but in that loss, she did not look out of place. She did not look overwhelmed by the moment, by the crowd, or by the pedigree of her opponent. She stood toe-to-toe with a titan, traded heavy artillery from the baseline, and demanded that the world number 2 play championship-level tennis to defeat her. The world seemed to go crazy because the world recognizes a superstar in embryo. They recognize the quiet, dangerous defiance of a player who refuses to bow down to the crown. Eala may have walked off the court in Rome without the victory, but she walked away with something infinitely more valuable, the undeniable proof that her ceiling is the stratosphere. The next time these two meet, whether it's on the manicured lawns of Wimbledon or the hard courts of Flushing Meadows, the dynamic will be fundamentally altered. Rybakina will know that the girl from the Philippines is no longer a prospect, but a threat. And Eala will know that the Ice Queen can bleed. If you found this deep dive valuable, if you appreciate analysis that goes beyond the box score to uncover the hidden narratives driving the sport we love, I urge you to subscribe to the channel. We do not just report the news here. We dissect it, we contextualize it, and we treat the athletes with the analytical respect they deserve. Hit the like button to help push this content through the algorithm, and leave a comment below with your thoughts. Do you believe Alexandra Eala has a trajectory to become a Grand Slam champion? Or do you think the power gap established by players like Rybakina is simply too vast to overcome? I read every single comment, and I look forward to debating this with you down below. Until the next deep dive, keep watching the courts, because the future of tennis is unfolding right in front of our eyes.